I don't know if you've ever done this, I know at my house, once you paint one room, like the next room doesn't look so good. But this isn't really aesthetics as much as, space is often defined how people react and interact. And I know Dean and Marty, I took you up there, in spite of Zach's best efforts, frankly, the place looks kind of ratty. I mean, it does. There was shelving that used to be in there, and the floor is kind of rusty. In the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, every once in a while I bought a little furniture for up there. The turning point for me was one day I got up and I had a big rust stain on my pants from a chair that had probably been up in that conference room for 50 years. You know, once in a while you need to have a few new things. I don't think we're doing anything extravagant. And then, just so you know, my way of thinking was, Courtney said, well, you should talk to the board, so I came in and talked with you a little bit, not in depth. And then Dean and Marty and I went up there and looked. And I had it in my head, this is really kind of between the judicial branch and the auditor, because the auditor's in charge of the building.
Right.
This is your building.
Yes.
You know that. So that was, the thing kind of got legs without getting, I guess, as much involvement as you all wanted, and I apologize for that, because that wasn't my intent. And it just sort of took off. And then also it has to do with the people that Eric has talked to, you know, craftsmen, tradesmen, they aren't always available. Just, you can't just call them up and say, hey, do this tomorrow. It's like, in fact, the courtroom itself is now on hold until next year because, you know, they just can't get to it. So that's where I'm at. And on the one hand, this has not been as coordinated and transparent as it might have been. But by the same token, I've given some deference to the judicial branch and Courtney, and I really haven't had that much to do with this, to tell you the truth. I mean, other than I do like to paint, and you know, that's a good thing. So anyway, that's, I'm just talking off the top of my head, and I got the not impression. Courtney has told me that I have not handled this well, and I accept that, and I apologize, and mea culpa, mea culpa. So I didn't mean to get the cart before the horse. I mean, if you want, I'll just pay for the painting and the carpet out of the collection of forfeiture fund, and you can go back to ground zero and start wherever you want. I wasn't trying to push anybody into anything.
That's kind of where I was kind of caught by surprise here. You know, it's been all the time that the auditor's in charge of the courthouse, subject to the approval of the Board of Supervisors, and we had in the past some general discussions and talk about doing some things up there, and then all of a sudden it's happening. And we hadn't voted or approved anything in the board, and Courtney hadn't brought anything to us because she was not aware of what was going on up there. So we didn't have anything budgeted for it, and so here we are, work being done, not following procedure. It's quite clear in the code that the auditor shall have general custody and control of the courthouse subject to the direction of the board. That's right out of the code. And the third thing that really bothered me is that we always like to get several quotes on stuff like this, or more than one. And it's a big enough project that I think some of the other carpet layers or people would have liked to have had an opportunity to bid on that. So
I believe that was done, Neil.
So I was only ever given one.
Yeah.
We asked to see the bids, and we've never seen any other bids, so I don't know who the competitors were. But
I know there was more than one done. It wasn't like they
but
went
the
to
main
one.
thing was the procedure wasn't followed, and so we don't have anything budgeted for it. I know there's some money in the capital funds, not enough so that's where I'm coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah, and
is the procedure wasn't followed, and I don't know.
I thought it was being, I thought Courtney had money in the budget, and I thought she was in charge of the courthouse. I thought it was. I didn't perceive that. Again, I haven't been hands-on on this as much as people might suspect. I did rely on Eric to run around. I know there were multiple quotes gotten. I know the original one from Barrels was then said that's not good anymore. They originally bid some carpet that was like an overrun, or they bought too much or had a job cancel or something like that, so it was better price in the beginning. But they did, you know, there was some effort on their part. Now, I can't give you the details. I'll ask them to forward that to you.
John, you had made mention at the end of your explanation there, if I heard you right, you said this is now on hold until next year, just due to some of the contractors even being available.
Yeah, yeah. just
Well,
not available.
in my mind, that kind of,
Opens it up.
well, and it kind of solves the problem. You know, we were worried that, you know, we got people starting Monday and we have no way to pay for it,
Oh,
and we didn't take
no.
bids, and
No.
Courtney didn't know anything about it. So if it's on hold, then let's
Well-
leave it on hold. Let's properly budget for the thing, let's properly bid for the thing, and then let's see where the numbers lie and budget for it appropriately, and we'll get it into the 17 budget.
Well, if there
There's-
has been multiple quotes made, then we don't need to go through that process of bidding again. I think it's just that we need to
Yeah.
Need to see them.
see them.
I believe there was due diligence exercise, you know, throughout the entire process. I don't have to question.
But there is
that.
carpet scheduled to go down today. Is it going down?
I told you a long time ago, I'm willing to pay for painting and carpet out of the collection and forfeiture fund.
Okay.
So,
All right,
so that,
and I assume there's plenty there. I just looked at the end of September, I got the paper here, and there's $77,912 in there.
Yeah.
But I know you had some of that you're gonna use for some other things, but do you have enough to do that, take care of, okay?
That was my question, is I knew Neil and I did your
Um,
pre-budget, and I remember you had plans for that.
well, can I tell you the penny, no, but is there, of course, there'll be more money coming in too.
Mhm.
I think there will be this physical year as much or more new money coming in as carpet and paint. And I have no problem with that, because actually, that's the sort of thing that interests me, as far as spending some of my money on, is because that's and we're really not talking about trying to have a fancy place for lawyers and judges, we're talking about providing good service to people and having spaces that are appropriate. You got people who come in under trying and difficult situations, they need to have
Privacy.
privacy and spaces that are secure. And I think also, and this is, maybe sounds a little esoteric, when you come into a room, a building, there's a reason that we build courthouses to look like courthouses, because they ought to instill in you that we value this, and this is something that's important, and it isn't just, you know, some folding chairs in a pole barn. I mean, just not to be trite about it, but and I also know, by the way government works, that haven't done much up there in about 50 years, and probably won't do much again for the next 50. And I'd like to see the courtroom done right, so.
Yeah,
I'd like
and-
to see it.
And I don't think there was any pushback
Yeah,
of that.
no,
I mean, the last
yeah.
2 years we talked
Yeah.
about it. I don't recall, you're a little new to it,
Well,
but I
I
don't
just thought
recall.
Courtney and I were gonna forge ahead, that's what I thought.
Boy, it sure came as a surprise to her.
I know, and that was part of it too. I also thought that there was a little more communication going on the other way too, because if I was Courtney and somebody showed up and started putting paint on the walls, I kinda wonder what the heck's going on too, so.
Well, and in as much as I appreciate Eric taking this on out of the
Yeah.
goodness of his heart,
Yeah.
he's not a county employee or
No.
part of the process.
Well,
And-
in the sense that the judicial branch, that's their space.
Yeah.
I mean, if we wanted to go up there and paint the place pink.
Yeah, I'm just
They might
talking part of our process.
They might object, you know.
And I don't think anybody had any problems
Yeah.
with doing it,
Yeah,
because we know that it probably needs to be done, and particularly if we're gonna be doing more regionalization, we need to be on that cutting edge, I think, so.
well, I think having a reasonable facility keeps you in the game. We've seen this long-term trend. We saw small courthouses reducing staff and things like that. Do I think we're gonna see regionalization? Maybe not during
I know, but some.
my tenure and your tenure, but I think you have to stay, you know, in the game. But anyway, so that's the thought process, or the lack of thought process that was going on in my mind. And I
All right,
wasn't-
But they have consolidated some of the courtrooms, right? Haven't they? To a certain degree.
We routinely get requests, and sometimes, they can't already get to go try a case out of county, but we get suggestions that are quite persuasive. I tried a Jasper County case in Dallas County a couple years ago. I had a case here that they were gonna move this up to Sac County because there wasn't any courtroom available here. Everybody was busy. And the Des Moines lawyer objected. I didn't. I would have gone to Sac County. That would have been fine. But yeah, you're seeing some of that, Gene. Do I think in 20, 30 years, we're gonna see 12 or 15 regional court centers? Probably. But, like I say, that's more than I wanted to comment today. So again, you know, I apologize for not thinking this worked. I just saw Moneybags here, had a bunch of money to spend, and we were gonna go spend it, but.
All right, to summarize or bottom line this discussion today, the paint and the carpet you're gonna take care of with your collection
Yep.
and forfeiture fund, and then the future, we're gonna, whatever we plan in the future will be approved by this board, and there'll be multiple bids.
Would there be, now, also, the guy's not available to do work for a couple months, but like St. Tony, we can't wait till February and say, well, start out in June either, I mean, they kind of schedule out. Can we get some bids in the next month and contemplate using what is in the capital budget fund and then maybe an amendment this year? I hate to wait till July, August, September, October, because prices are gonna change. And really, we're getting the cart before the horse, because the thing that started out pushing this thing was a third courtroom.
Yeah.
And I wish y'all would have been up there last Thursday. It was just an absolute zoo. I mean, judges were actually having to alternate, stand in the hallway and wait for that courtroom to be available.
That's one thing I'd like to shed some light on when Dean and I were up. I mean, there's people sitting in the hall, and it's just not right. I mean, there is no privacy, where that other courtroom would alleviate some of that problem.
And then the courtroom also, and I told this to Marty, it isn't like it's going to be used for 2-3 hours a week. You also have another space to act as a conference room while there are trials going on. We're really short on conference space. When there's a jury trial, nobody can be back in that jury room. So you got one little bitty room right behind the bench that 3 people fit in. Then there's 2 small conferences. Used to be one big one, and we put a wall in it years ago, which was fine. And also, we're net down space, if you think back. What is now the court reporter room used to be the library. Maybe you remember? Court reporter room, and what is now Judge McMenamin's office.
Yeah, you showed me that.
Used to be the library. Well, the library was also used as conference. And then that office was built for Judge Scheckman when he's a resident judge, and Judge McMenamin moved over there. Judge Swanson has a very small office there. He's senior status. And then at the east end of the building, that used to be one bigger room, and then when was that wall was put in there? 10 years ago? Before your time, okay. They just put a wall in there and then cordoned off that other office, and that's where the juvenile court officer is. And that's part of the expense of this deal was to make that space work. I'd like to have the courtroom as big as you can, but the idea is put a wall in there behind the restroom so that when people are in and out of juvenile court services, they don't go actually into the courtroom space. Plus, it's good sound insulation from the bathrooms, if you can, you know what I mean? If you're-
Yeah, you were talking about that. You showed me that.
So, I don't like adding halls, because
Right.
we've got that goofy hall now that
Yeah.
it chops the whole thing up.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that.
If you got a couple $100,000, I could clear cut the whole thing and
Start over.
and make it perfect. But it's not gonna be perfect, it's gonna be better than it is, so.
Well, once again, I think we're kind of belaboring it in
Yeah.
essence of time. We've agreed to the need.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Okay.
been any delay in that whatsoever. It's just that the
more
processes
than-
haven't been followed. And so is it my understanding we're gonna go ahead and do the flooring before the woodwork and remodeling would be done? Is that wise?
On the west.
On the west
On the
side.
west.
The courtroom.
Okay, so just over in there.
Not on the east. on
The
east.
courtroom will be a separate
No, you
entity,
can't do
yeah,
that,
separate
not be in there,
job.
putting up a wall.
Okay, and Eric is in some kind of receipt that that bids were taken and that we are accepting the most appropriate
yes.
course there?
I have seen them, I haven't,
Of course, I get it.
but
But-
I know there were bids from Pringers, I know there were bids from Bureaus. I know Bureau was rebid, they were told to go back and sharpen their pencil.
Yeah.
And
In an answer to your question, should we just proceed? I mean, I would be of the belief that, we've already let the barn door open, we need to get it done now. And how we pay for it, the county's in good financial shape. We will find a way to pay for it, but whether it means an amendment to the budget or not, I think we need to move forward with it and get it done. But let's just follow the process, at least from this point moving forward.
If there's 15 now, it would require a small amendment, because I think it was around 20-ish. But to echo your concern, Mark, I think, I feel remiss in not instilling in the public confidence that their money is being well spent. But I think it has been, and I think things have been done well. We haven't documented it as well as we could. And I'm in the paperwork.
The need is proven. I don't think, none of us are
Yeah.
questioning the need whatsoever. And if the
And
public wants to question the need, have them come see me. I mean, that's,
Well-
Yeah.
I feel that strongly about it. But it's going to get done. Eventually, we probably, we talk about we haven't done anything in 50 years. Eventually, I don't know if it'll come in my tenure, but eventually, we're going to have to talk about the courtroom. I mean, that's starting to look a little 70-ish itself. I mean, it's nice and presentable, but at some
Yeah.
point, we'll need to visit about that.
I think the real problem in that courtroom is technology. We got that TV on a stand, and we kind of push that around. Ideally, you would have more of a triangle design where the judge and the jury and the lawyers are being able to see the same thing, or multiple screens. That's kind of driving that a little bit. I also have concerns about handicap accessibility. We've got some steps in there. I used to put steps in just for, I don't know, elegance.
How about security? Are you comfortable with it there?
No, it could be better. I think what we have in place is reasonable and adequate, but I think it could be better. There are some, of course, security's on everyone's minds, and after we see what's happening in Europe, and not that we're going to be hit by terrorists, but there are times when people are in heightened states of animation who you don't want to have to stand next to in the hall. They've got to leave with that. And I really would need to take a road trip and just go look at, I tell you, Story County's, it was built in the last few years. I know they've got there's some theories and things. I really like the fact that we have cameras. I'd like to have more cameras. I think cameras are a big deterrent. They also help you convict people if something does happen. The problem with, when you have a stairway, an elevator, and then another stairway, those are kind of fixed objects. So, I know in Sioux City, Woodbury County, they've done some things. Polk County is going through a bunch of money. I think there are some relatively low-cost, high-tech things that we could be instituting. And so, yeah, but that's another thing. So, anyway, I will tell Eric to get us some more information.
Yeah, I think as long as, if there's been multiple bids taken, I have no problem with accepting those at this point.
Well,
I
and this-
agree with what you said, let's move forward.
And what's being done thus far isn't going to approve our budget any. It comes at the courtesy of the convicts, which I'm fine with. So.
It's what I like to spend that money on, because I view it as, well, first of all, you're gonna think this sounds funny, because you know how I think. I like spending on things that aren't directly in my office. It isn't like I'm gonna go out and put up some big shindig or something. Something that benefits a broad sector. It benefits police officers, it benefits the sheriff, it benefits the public, so that we have a better situation. A lot of people that deal with the court system don't see it very often. And I think having a more professional look is a good thing.
It's more of a safety issue, really.
It's also, there's that, now I'm going to start sounding like an architect. Spaces oftentimes define how people behave, you know. If you're in a nice place, I think you tend to behave a little nicer, so. Well, I'm belaboring the point.
So-
Thank you for the time.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thanks.
having me on at 9 o'clock, I appreciate that, because that
Yeah.
was a lot better for my schedule.
I figured it did.
So, thank you.
Thanks, John, and
Okay.
we'll
Thanks,
just keep in
John.
touch.
Yeah, I will,
So we're looking at basically about total cost a little over 40,000 probably.
Yeah, it's gonna start with a 5.
Yeah, probably by the time we get all done, electrical.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
No.
Nothing.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
I have a little comment. Dickinson County up in Spirit Lake was, their courthouse was just redone in the last
They got a brand
year
new
or
one.
so.
That'd be a good one, too.
They got a brand new one up in Dickinson
Get
County.
it?
Yes.
Courthouse?
Beautiful.
Apparently state-of-the-art, you know.
Really?
They're dead over it yet, too.
Dead over it?
Oh, yeah, it's the only dent they got, but they have very low tax rate. They have the
Yeah.
lowest tax rate in the state of Iowa, but they do have some debt, and that's for the courthouse.
And it's beautiful.
In fact, I went up there, it's one of those stories.
It's called recreation sport in the county.
Old fort on occasion on the road, and that was one of their favorite.
But the reason they have the lowest tax rate is because of the boogie.
Old Court of Appeals, oral arguments in Dickinson County.
Comment?
Okay,
No. No one can say
should we
anything.
move on?
Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll go down to the second item. This is secondary roads, Dave.
For what, and it was sitting on- I don't remember this guy that read it.
Morning, Dave.
Good morning, Dave.
Haven't seen John
Get some calls today. It's raining.
might have gotten, check the status of the gravel.
I got a call right this morning.
Golly sakes. Gene called Marty and I the other day when we were down looking at drain 89, the quicksand drain. And I think that's gonna probably develop into a little more than, that's just a simple project.
Still a headache.
Headache, yeah. We're probably not gonna be able to get at it this week. We had a culvert fail over by Halber.
Whoa.
And just on the curve outside of,
About that.
up on the,
What diameter is?
This is, what is this?
that's a culvert under
by-
the road by Halber.
How big?
30 inch.
30 inch.
Not real big, but it's.
So is that on the outside when it,
This is on the, just past the road, right?
Wrapped in your-
We're looking
Yeah,
under
it's-
the road
It's
there.
on the east-west stretch, yeah.
this is going, looking through? That's
That's
the other
the
end
other
probably,
side,
yeah.
Yeah, there's a depression in the asphalt, and we put cold mix in it. Paul crawled inside of there and took some other pictures, which I don't have, but you can see the bottom of the cold mix that we put.
That's what's-
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
From the culvert?
from the inside of that hole, they call it into,
Jeez.
it's quite a hole, maybe 10 foot in diameter. So they're gonna
Wow,
dig it up today and
Put a new culvert in.
put a new culvert in. We'll
Obviously.
probably have the road closed for a while.
Yeah.
You got the culvert in stock?
Got the culvert in stock, yeah. We had to go borrow a van from Crawford County because our vans aren't coming until tomorrow. We were pretty low on stock on both vans and culverts
Okay.
and stick them together.
What road is that?
Looks like 245th Street, I believe.
It is 245th Street, yeah.
Thank you.
245th, that
Just
runs
south
east
of
and
Halber.
west
Uh-huh,
into Halber.
into Halber, yeah. It's just.
It's right on the corner there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
because it's 245th that goes through Roselle as well, yeah.
Little side journey, which we all like to take. Gene called Marty and I the other day, and we went and looked at what we thought was a county drain, and is in fact a county drain. In section 26 of Richland, it's drain 54. There's a hole in the field. It's a rather minor hole the way it looks. There's a 12-inch tile that runs through there. It's right next to a high-pressure gas line.
She thought that run east and west there, I don't know.
Let me see that.
That's,
There it is, right there, coming off of that.
okay.
That
Green 54?
That gas line goes through my place.
Does it?
If it's the one I'm thinking of.
Uh-huh.
There's natural gas that goes under mine,
Yeah,
just a corner.
so it's very, very close to your place, yeah.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I don't see any immediate emergency for this one, but we'll work on this as weather dictates.
Yeah, that'd be right south, let's see.
That one would be a simple one compared to the one down by
That
Coon.
hole down here, is this line pretty accurate?
No,
Oh, okay, so that hole is down there.
yeah, it's better than nothing.
That one down by Coon is right down here.
Well, I'm sure that's what it is.
Scaled off the map, so.
You get right in here.
Actually, poor Scott in Tisdale, he's hooked up, he has natural gas at his place.
So is this one.
Huh?
This
This
one's
is
this
the 54 one.
Really?
No, 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 no. 89.
The big line
Yeah,
goes through, so you
89.
tap right onto it?
Well, I don't know how big it is, but
Yeah.
when it was put through, they got hooked on, so he has natural gas out in the country.
Yeah,
They put a,
so does D.
They put an inch or inch and a half feeder line on most of them.
Is that the only drain you got then?
Just the update on 89, and we'll go ahead, I know we're gonna need probably 2, maybe 3 loads of white rock at, $20 a ton, and
I hope we
Probably
can get
big-
by with that.
big loads, we could probably dump $1,000 worth of white rock in that hole or more, something to stand on.
Do it
Tiles,
some days.
tiles drop like this, the main tile has, the lateral that's come in, and I think it got into the quicksand and just kind of blew itself a hole down there, but there's so much water in there, that they can't work underwater, so they're gonna have to stabilize the footing with some rock, and
Would any crushed concrete work on that, or should it be white rock?
I think probably clean white rock is gonna have, if we had some clean crushed concrete, it would, but we
Okay.
don't.
We're gonna need something bigger though, 2-3 inch is what we're looking at to get a base.
Kind of like a sewer trench, what they do in a sewer trench to, they bed it with rock to make it stable, and, we went over to a local contractor in that area and visited with them a little bit about whether they'd be interested in, helping us with that. They're so busy, they don't have time for it. So it's gonna be up to us, and it might be another week from now, because this fixing this culvert's our first priority. And it's gonna rain, I think, a few days this week. They're gonna dig it out today if they can, and try and pour the concrete for the patch, Wednesday or Thursday.
By the end of the week, the ground will get a little harder, it's supposed to get a little cooler. Let quicksand freeze.
I would note, or maybe just add a comment that and I think Courtney did have that in the minutes, last week's motion was made for a minor repair on Drain 89. This is no longer minor, or it depends on how we use the ambiguity of that term, but
Yeah.
let's make today's motion to approve the drain on 54 and to move forward with repairs necessary on 89. Does that make sense?
That sounds good, yeah. If we get to the point to where we're really in over our head, which has happened there before, we may have to call the big guns in. But,
You might have a football field hole.
yeah,
I'll say that.
we're not gonna say that. Before that happens, we should have learned from past experience that we won't allow that to happen. We did have Van Howen and Keller come up, and they drove well points in the last one, and they dewatered it. They pumped water for, I can't remember, it was a $10,000 bill 20-plus years ago, so it was
How deep is this tile with quicksand?
It's probably
4 or 5.
4 or 5 foot down.
Yeah.
Deep enough.
It's just kind of right in that level, there's some quicksand percolating over. I guess when they first uncovered the tile, everything just looked hunky-dory, the part that hadn't dropped.
Wouldn't you be better off using a sled in there? One of those things they work in,
Whole box.
Yeah.
box?
Yeah, we're probably gonna do the same thing with this white rock. And the box is mainly to keep your trench sides from
Right.
caving.
Collapsing.
That quicksand will come up from the bottom. You've got to take care of that first, and you kinda gotta do them both. And hopefully, we can widen the hole enough to
You're
where
right,
we
Jerry, it would come up around it.
don't need a box, which we don't have, but if we got to that point, we'd need to hire a contractor with a big excavator.
My biggest concern looking at that 10-inch tile is how full of quicksand it is and how
Yeah.
far. That's gonna be the biggest issue.
Hopefully, it's not shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we don't know. A lot of water was running through the intake, according to Al.
Yeah.
Down below that we could see, so
But there's 2 10-inch lines. That one line could be feeding that whole thing.
could be.
But until you get into it, you don't know.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see something like that that you don't get to see every day.
You make a motion?
Interesting.
Yeah, I stand by the motion.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor to approve drain 54 and then also move forward drain 59.
I'll second that.
59?
It was,
Or
yeah.
89, 89.
89.
89,
Yeah.
excuse me.
And I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Now, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I think there should be enough for everybody. Got two quotes. Currently, we have a Scott system. That's the top quote there. And there's some modifications to this quote that are comparability. We've got these two quotes. Our system is 16 years old. They no longer support it, which I'm not sure what that means. If it broke, we'd probably be looking at having to buy a new telephone box or something if it went along, so there'd be a time lag in between getting it, and we'd have to make some sort of arrangements to.
I'm sorry, Dave, how old is your system now?
16 years
16.
old. It was put in with the building when it was put in, and
Okay.
it's a DK series phone system, and it says the quote description. And it's no longer supported by Toshiba or Scott, the dealer. So they gave us a quote to replace the system and add in 10 new phones. The one thing is, if we go with the Scott, we can use our old phones to any extent we would like. We could keep some of the old phones, but we'll go to that, I guess, after we look at the Western Iowa Networks quote. 5520 was their quote for 10 phones with an extended warranty. Western Iowa, it's on the back, the bottom end of it is 5638, so they're real close in quote-wise, though the Western Iowa Network is without the 5-year maintenance and warranty, which they weren't able to give me yet this morning. You can see the Toshiba on the front page has got an extended warranty, hardware 5 years, 3 years software, and they priced that at $275. So in talking to Terry this morning, he thought it would be more than that amount. I didn't even really tell him what the amount was, but he thought maybe $1,000, $1,500 is what they would be talking. They don't generally.
Western Iowa Advantage, or Western Iowa?
Yes, for the warranty thing. They said they don't generally do that. He had to deal with upper management to talk to them, but see what kind of number they put in there.
What kind of system is the Western Iowa Network?
Same kind we have here, other than a more modern version of it. Don't.
Sure. What that's called, what car's considered.
I'm not sure what we got without going down.
Yeah, what does it say on there?
Avaya?
Avaya?
Did ya?
I thought it was something like that.
Dave, do you know, well, you got Scott already, right?
We've got Scott already.
When they come down to service, do they charge you every time?
I think they do, though, and we haven't had the need for much service once we got the thing up and running initially. It's been okay, and we had a phone die, and they actually gave us an old phone to use to, Becky's phone died.
Services has Scott, and one of their complaints is, there's always a service charge. Don't do anything. So but do we get charged from Western Iowa Networks for?
Major stuff, yeah, and it's just on the phone bill, they'll charge for service calls, but it's usually when it's something major.
That's where Western Iowa Networks would probably have the advantage as far as service getting here, whether price-wise, I don't know, and whether it's gonna be something we need. Scott's quote, we could get that down even further depending upon how many of our old phones we use. Probably the one that we like the best, and I've only got one copy, is at $49.95, and that's giving us 4 new phones and reusing the remainder of our, we've got 10 of them now, so we'd have 10s of stock to use from, and they can configure those phones to work, and otherwise everything else is the same.
Just 4 new phones.
Just 4 new phones instead of 10 new phones, and those phones are
135.
100.
If you did that, your remaining 6 phones, you'd also have 4 spares.
Yes.
In case one of them
Yeah.
went out.
And they haven't been that unreliable. I think in the last 16 years, I think maybe we've lost 3 phones as far as due to some sort of failure.
But the system has been pretty dependable over the years?
It has been, yeah. So,
There's been some issues with the Avaya system, hasn't there, over the years? Or has it been
Well,
pretty dependable?
Our problem in here is that the software and the equipment we have is back far enough that the new phones, or the newer model phones won't work with it. So we're kind of stuck right now that if we have handsets go out, we don't have any replacements. And we have to go out and find some new stuff. And we had it down for almost a day, it's been several months ago, because of a piece of equipment problem, and they had a problem being able to locate a replacement piece for what we've got down there. So we've got a quote from Western Island Networks. I just need to get Terry to come in. I'd rather have him explain it than me try to.
yeah.
What they want to do on
Did
our
you ask them
stuff.
if the whole phones will work on this system?
Would you get one from Scott?
I didn't at this point.
No, but will they work on this system?
Our old phones will work on the new system. They
Okay,
can be
that's what I wanted.
configured for the new system. So we could, as if all the spares would die and we'd get down to the point, we could start bringing in new phones at 100, and was it 35 a piece?
135 a piece, yeah.
135.
That's for a 10-button phone. Yeah.
That's the one for 4 phones.
Did everybody get one of these, or?
I
They were
passed that
just
around.
passing it
Okay.
around.
Dave
That's-
just had one copy of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
didn't make an extra copy of that.
Well, it's good to know that, the system isn't totally outdated, that you can
No.
still use the phones and,
I was kind of surprised.
yeah.
And I'm not sure with Western Iowa's system,
Doesn't
if
sound
that's gonna
like that's
carry
go-
forth in the future.
Yeah, you're having problems already.
Yeah, but not
With that.
already. We've had that system for, it's been more than 16 years.
I know, has it really?
No, I don't think it has.
Because
You don't think so?
Uh-uh.
I think we got maybe Toshiba's at about the same time.
We don't have Toshiba.
They're
We're
gone,
all
I
Avaya.
think.
I mean, we were on Avaya and then went to Western Iowa Networks, which took over that system. So
Were you on Toshiba's prior to being on Avaya?
Could be. That was before I was doing this.
Yeah,
And that's been 15 years.
that's been 15 years.
Remember they had the cranks on the side?
Yeah, they did.
Those phones were really reliable.
There's not many around.
There's not many you guys remember those.
I've used it.
I do.
So-
My grandpa used to have one.
You're right then, yeah. If you've been doing it for 15 years, because the reason we got Scott was because that's
We had
what
a party line, we had 9.
the courthouse had.
Growing up as kids.
They had that DX system that we wound up with, I think, prior to the Toshiba.
Dave, if we would consider keeping, say, 6 of the older phones, would the functionality work with the newer phones as far as transferring calls and all that?
I think we're pretty simple with our
Yeah.
phone system there. I don't think we need the level of sophistication that,
Well, they wouldn't have quoted it if they weren't compatible, would they?
no.
I mean-
I think for the most part, if we can pick it up and hit a line, and we've got 5 lines out there, we might even be able to drop one of our lines, but if we can get on a line, we're pretty good. If we can do voicemail and do paging, and that's pretty it with us.
I like the idea of getting 4 new phones and keeping 6 of the old ones. It saves $720, apparently have the same functionality, and plus, if one of the old phones go out, you've got that 4
Got some
spares sitting there.
spares, yeah.
And which,
Yeah. We're okay with that too.
Dave, budget-wise, you have an equipment, a big, equipment fund, so you're gonna be able to,
Shouldn't, yeah.
Fit it in
I
your
think under
schedule.
administration, we've got like 5,000 in that line, and once you take it back to a individual budget item, so it'd come close to taking care of it unless we go buy a printer or a copier, and then but we're okay.
What is this system gonna have that you don't have today?
Just nothing really. It'll be the kind of same basic system. I think it'll be a little easier to use, and it does have some pretty fancy features, but I don't think we'll take advantage of them. It's not something that we're gonna be, using often enough to become proficient in.
Sure.
We can record a call with it, say if somebody calls in and they're, want to leave a real lengthy message, you can actually talk to them and hit the record button. I thought that was kind of a nice feature, and you can send that off to, gives a report on.
that is a nice feature.
Mhm.
That's probably the one feature that really,
If someone calls and starts reading either riot act or worse, you can hit the record button.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good feature.
well, the two quotes on the surface are close enough to one another that I just soon use the local provider. However, when you figure in that the one is including a 5-year extended service and maintenance, plus the availability downsize in terms of new phones, it appears to me that that's the preferable option, is it not?
That's certainly the lesser quote, that's for sure, yeah.
Well, especially if that warranty is as high a price as what they're thinking.
Well,
Then that quote.
It wasn't that bad, though.
Wasn't that
It's
bad.
No, but
On here.
he's talking about Western Mass.
Western-
It's $275 on the real one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't, since they don't normally quote that, they haven't put a number together on
But,
that.
you know.
But they thought it could be over $1,000.
Yeah.
Mark, even if it's the same, whatever, comparing what we have now, it's $275, it's over $1,000 difference anyhow, if we use the old phones. And it's gonna only get worse with whatever their bid is on maintenance, so. Are you ready for a motion on this?
Sure am.
I would move that we accept the bid from Scott with buying 4 new phones.
At the $49.95?
Yes.
Got a motion on the floor, we can get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second, any other discussion? Not, we'll call for the vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, too. Thanks, Tom.
You might want to look at it. I'll look.
Is east-west road or north-south?
I assume east west.
Okay.
Is it Denny's?
Right.
Yeah.
It was before my time.
It might be scary.
I was here when they did it.
Was it True Western now?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about putting the shoulders on a man road yet?
You know, and they had trouble, they had transfer problems.
Thought about it, but
Let me visit.
They had more
Maybe I'll-
capabilities actually with their old system than they have with the new system.
Church?
It was more
Big
big
source.
easier to use.
I don't know for sure, but I'll talk to him.
Dave, what is their timeline for installation?
I think pretty soon.
All right.
Yeah, and we're doing okay unless we have a failure of the
Yeah.
box that's downstairs.
Not an emergency anyway?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you, thanks, Dave.
Good luck over. Okay, with that, we'll go down to the next item on the agenda. The third item is the ambulance part-time wage discussion. Pat?
Patiently waiting.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Anything changed from last week with what we
No.
talked about?
No, I think Mark has more information on the union.
Yeah, I was, I spent quite a little time on this last week. This one's a tough for me, because I've been on Pat for a better part of 3 years to get overtime reduced, and now I'm giving him an opportunity, and now I'm standing in his way, and I feel rather remiss about that. But I talked with the union steward, and they did meet, and they voted not to issue a letter of support or that it wouldn't impact wages. And it was actually for a number of reasons. But mostly, they just didn't want to surrender their opportunity to discuss wages. And I said, well, you're not going to, in doing so, you're not. I just didn't want this one issue to be used, you know, against us later in dialogue. And he understood it very well. According to what he reported, you know, he was a little bit disappointed that the ambulance union didn't agree to it as well. But needless to say, I am disappointed that they didn't go along with it. But and again, he said there's some members of the union that like overtime, and then of course there's some that don't want overtime. It's just a matter of, you know, person's work schedule and habits and finances and things like that. But they did agree, or he did make a comment that they have long thought that part-time paramedics were underpaid, quote unquote underpaid. They did say that. But he just failed to get, you know, pretty much what I was looking for, and that was, you know, a understanding, perhaps call it a memorandum of understanding, that this would not impact wage negotiations in 2 years. I would think, again, if I was a mouse in the room, I would suppose that there's probably some disagreement that, you know, some non-full-timers should be paid, you know, at the same rate as full-timers. I would imagine that there was some hesitance to that, although I can't, you know, speak for them. But, you know, last week I had just made a suggestion out there, and this was after the discovery that, the rediscovery that, if a person would use this, you know, as a springboard to get full-time scheduling with the county, that they would actually fall back to 90% and then 95% after 6 months. And, you know, I had floated that idea around here, and you know, we talked about it. But if we go to 90%, see, we're currently at 1745. Here in a very short 6 months, 7 months, they'll go to 1790. I want to throw it out there to see if anybody would be in favor of doing something similar to that. 90% would be 1570, which is still a significant raise over, you know, their current, which may alleviate it, but it may not do it enough. 95% would be at 1658, and once again would help it, but perhaps still maybe not quite enough. But again, they wouldn't be taking a very lengthy or significant cut in pay should they go on full-time. Let me ask you this, Pat, and this is really looking into a crystal ball, and we asked you last week to do some forecasting. We appreciate you doing it, but we're going to have some retirements here very soon.
Numerous.
Not day after tomorrow, but in all likelihood, some of these candidates could very well be considered for full-time status with the county. How much impact do you think that will have if we approve whatever wage, and then would likely, if we go the full request, how much do you think that's going to impact their desirability or their interest in the county working full-time?
I talked to two of the part-timers that work on a regular basis, and one that comes in every once in a while and fills in, and advised them that, you know, if they went to the full 100% of what they make, what the full-timers make, and they were hired full-time, they had to go back to 90%. And the two that do it on a regular basis were in favor of that for the simple fact that day one you get insurance and you get sick time. You know, it's like they said, it's only a year, and then you're right back up to where everybody else is, plus then you get your holidays and everything, the rest of your benefits. They were concerned about that 10% cut for a year because of the two extra, the insurance and
Benefits.
the
That was,
benefits.
my thought was that the insurance would totally trump
Absolutely.
the differential in pay. The
absolutely.
value of it. If they wanted the insurance. If the insurance meant anything to them, it would totally trump it.
And I explained how much that was.
If they're, for example, the only time it'd be an issue is, for example, if their spouse has a full-time job with family insurance, and then the insurance wouldn't be.
Mhm.
But if they were coming full-time and wanted the insurance, it would absolutely trump that differential in pay.
Most of the people that I know that work outside the county, that their spouses have an insurance, the county's insurance is still gonna trump that insurance. So I would think the majority of the time, it's gonna be the insurance that's gonna be the big benefit.
Okay, I appreciate your doing that. That's helpful. So then we're just thus, faced with making a decision then on whether or not, or how much we believe that this may impact, wage negotiation in the future. I, for one, I'll go along with the wishes of the board, but I, for one, still believe that it should be less, slightly less than what a full-time employee is making.
It is slightly less because it's their base pay. There's no longevity, there's no CCP increase. It's their very basic pay, so. the
But we have
full-time-
non-CCP paramedics.
True.
Right now.
But they are getting.
Well, they have
longevity.
some longevity,
Yeah.
but that longevity's rather, it takes 5
years.
years for the first bump and
Yeah.
then,
Do any part-time paramedics pay union dues?
Mm-mm.
No. So they're pretty neutral as far as the union is concerned.
Well, and as a former union steward, just speaking for myself, nobody else, if I was negotiating for wages, I'd be comparing to other full-time services, not our part-time.
and they did mention that too. Yeah, they did. They said that, they're free to use comparables
Mhm.
in and without the county. So, they did mention that.
Okay.
I asked you when you came in if anything had changed, and I've asked the same question. I know in the minutes you've estimated approximately and $20,000 in savings. Is that still all realistic, or is there anything
I
that's
think so.
made that better or worse that you've come across?
That's a pretty midline, what I could estimate. It's, it's not guessing low or guessing high, it's just
Okay.
right midline.
But you haven't come across any factuals or information that would change that?
No.
Okay, very good.
But I do think that the 1745 is the one that's gonna help us the most. I think anything less than that is going to really hinder what I'm trying to accomplish.
And today's currently get a part-time is 1433, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And what's our full-time?
1745.
I thought that's what it was.
Yeah.
And we do have one CC paramedic that is able to do more than some of our full-timers that aren't CCP. And they still make more than that one does.
I refreshed myself with the union agreement again last night. And then they'll go to 1790 in fiscal year 16.
And I
I'm
would-
sorry, 7.
I would have liked us to follow suit with the full-time, so it stays that way.
Keep it consistent.
Because otherwise, that's how we got this big gap.
Yeah, I would,
Yeah.
the motion, I think, the movement should be, if it's going to be a percentage, it should stay a percentage. And then they would just ride along, with whatever the ambulance
Right.
wages are. As they have, but then that gap has just widened
Mhm.
over the years.
I'm a little bit flexible there. I obviously, the higher that 1745 figure is, the more attractive it would be to part-time paramedics, but we're currently, with the comparables you used, the lowest at 1433.
Mhm.
1711 would be the average, and I don't know where you got 1745, but that would put it right up there ahead of most, it'd be above average, that's for sure.
Mhm.
So if you want to go a little lower than that, I'm fine, but it's hard for me to say where, if we get it too high, we're paying money we won't have to. If we get it too low, it won't achieve its purpose as well as we want it to, and to replace overtime. So I don't know where that trade-off
The
dollar amount is.
1745 you're asking, that's what our base pay for our paramedics are.
Yeah. Okay.
So herein lies, Pat, I support the movement entirely. I mean, I'd do it today if I just knew it wasn't gonna impact us 2 years later, and it will.
I can't say either way, I don't know. But
Well, we've got a pretty good understanding of one another these days, so.
like I said, I'm glad that's your part.
Yeah.
But, to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish, I think it's gotta be the higher amount.
1745.
Mhm.
What do you guys think?
I'll go along with Pat. 1745.
I mean, before Mark was on that board, we've been in this boat for a long time,
Mhm.
and when I was on that board, we were going through the same problems of trying to get people hired, we just constantly fought it. I agree with Mark, I mean, there's no guarantees.
No.
Any employees in the county employees, we're gonna go through this, whether it's union or not, it's just one of those things. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I think at this point, as long as this has been going on, I can go with the 1745.
I
Well-
can too, and I can see where Mark's coming from too, but if we want to accomplish the savings and overtime,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to do a partial. We may not realize the full outcome of it, and I guess I feel like this is outside the unions, and I don't know why the unions has to be involved in it. I mean, I understand they're gonna use it against us, but
Yep.
it's all got a
That's gonna
different
be the
animal.
problem.
Yeah.
Very true.
If they don't like it, maybe they need to go part-time.
It's always an option.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I did.
I'd prefer something just a little bit less, actually. There's only, even at 1730, there would only be 3 that were higher, and a couple of them are private. And I think some of those people, the reason they can pay more is they're having their people do other things other than ambulance, or in addition to that, when they're not on call or doing something, instead of waiting for a call, they're performing other duties. They're multitasking, I would assume. So, but I'm not, if the rest of the board wants 1745, I'll go along with that. The important thing is to make the change, to cut down on the overtime expense.
Right.
And keep our employees fresh. That is the overriding factor. The dollar amount is of lesser importance.
Well, and once again, if it works, it was a great call.
Right.
If it doesn't work, we
I'll take the responsibility.
Absolutely.
just
Yep.
made a bad decision. So,
I think Pat is pretty confident that, we can get those
Yes.
hires. So I think that's a good thing.
It's not
For
gonna
the,
happen
for the
overnight.
reasons that Neil stated, to keep people fresh
Mhm.
and the savings involved. But if you don't get them,
payroll will be able to tell, won't it?
yeah.
I mean, you'll be the first to be able to, reinforce or refute that it was a good call, won't it?
Absolutely.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve this at 1730 an hour, just a little bit less, not that much.
Got a motion on the floor, need a second?
I believe the motion that died due to lack of second.
Yeah, my thoughts are, Neil, I appreciate it, and I was even suggesting 95%, but I think if we're going to do it, and it's going to do its task, we've got to let the director make the call.
Thank you.
And it's, I hope you understand my position on this
I do,
thing, that I'm
absolutely.
not. Let's see if it works. So I'll make motion to move it to, I'm gonna make a motion to make it to 1745 with the intent that it matches, current salary of full-time employees for fiscal year 16 and 17. Long enough to see what the results are. And then to be readdressed at the board's discretion for fiscal year 18.
Fair enough. After the,
Is that long enough period of time to know if it works or not, Pat?
it's hard to say. It'll show a difference.
Sure.
Yes, you'll.
I think it will, too.
I think we'll
I
be able to
think in
see
6 months you'll
where it's
see it.
headed. Yeah.
In 6 months, you'll see the difference.
Yeah.
But I'd like to give it another year, just to
Yeah.
make sure it wasn't an anomaly.
Right.
Yep.
That's fair enough.
Got a motion on the floor, which Mark stated. Courtney, do you have that?
Have it on tape.
Okay, so we got that motion, we need a second.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve it at the 1745 for fiscal year 16-17 and to be readdressed at fiscal year 18. Any other discussion?
Thanks, all.
I have
Go ahead.
a start date of this.
Well, we talked about, the first meeting, we talked about, how it's gonna affect the budget, when you have to amend, but if it does its task, you shouldn't have to amend the budget.
Right.
So I would begin it probably January 1st to make it as clean as possible.
Okay.
And then, of course, it would change again July 1st.
Right.
Okay. You got that with that addition or amendment? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thanks,
you,
Pat.
gentlemen. Thanks for all the work.
Good luck, Pat.
Are we still on for tomorrow night? No, that was, I don't know where we came up with the third
Thanks, Don.
Tuesday on that.
Well, because, hey, thanks, Don. Because Bob Benami said that he couldn't make it on the 10th, and so he wanted to know if we could make it on the 17th. I thought it was all along on the 17th, and then it moved to the 10th. So we had 3 members there. You got called.
Yeah,
But we didn't do any business.
we need to just.
We gotta do something on those collections.
Well, I was gonna send out an email today.
Okay.
Um,
So we're not gonna meet tomorrow night?
No.
Okay.
Also, Sarah said the second Tuesdays aren't good for her anymore.
Okay.
So we may have to, and it'd be better for me if we moved it off that day too, but.
Okay.
So we can discuss, I'll send out an email and get everybody's.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Pat.
too.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay, with that, we'll go down to the 4th item on the agenda is the receipt of the ASME Council 61 initial bargaining proposal, and that's in your packet.
Yes, Gene and I had a conservation meeting planned for Tuesday, this past Tuesday, and unfortunately, there were no union representatives from conservation present. Rather discouraged by that. I would have thought, at least with common courtesy, they would have given us a heads up. But they did send their union negotiator, union representative, I guess, from the actual union, who is Rick Eilander. And they presented us with their initial proposal, which, get you a copy or I'll read it as follows. Wages across the board, an increase of 3.5%. This is a 1-year agreement suggested by the local 1682. 3.5% across the board, plus an increase in longevity. 5 years at 15 cents an hour, 10 years at 20 cents an hour, 15 years at 25 cents an hour, and 20 at 30 cents an hour. Insurance was status quo, meaning no change to insurance. And then item 3 was a new section added to Article 4 that reads, employees required to work outside of the scope of their classification/job duties shall receive the rate of pay that the classification on an hourly basis. If the county has no such classification, the hourly rate shall be determined by the fair market rate. Employees shall be paid either the regular rate or the new rate, whichever is greater. So, at the end of this, I'll make a motion that we accept receipt of the ASME Council 61 initial bargaining proposal.
I will second that.
That we acknowledge receipt.
Correct.
Of this.
Got a motion and a second to acknowledge receipt. Any other discussion?
Any questions?
Yeah.
I've got comments.
This is the one.
Right ahead.
We have all kinds.
Yeah, we shared ours on Tuesday.
This new article is, gives me quite concerned. And so, first of all, I don't know what is outside of their scope of their classification, because every job description has "and other duties as assigned."
Correct.
Secondly, who decides what is outside? For example, if someone is driving a truck and they need a CDL to do it, and maybe
Mhm.
not specifically, do they get paid? And who determines what rate the trucker gets paid? Or if somebody does some electrical work and they want to get electrician's rates.
Or plumbing.
Mhm.
And then, yes, but on the other side, there's times in their job description when they're doing something, emptying garbage cans or cleaning restrooms, that is
Way below.
way below their job description. It's just work that's got to be done. We're not going to dock them for doing that. So it's a very one-sided, hard to monitor, difficult to specifically put an amount on. So I totally oppose the new section.
Actually, that section has a lot to do with the grievance that was filed earlier.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would agree with that, Neil. I mean, it's very vague, can be interpreted anyway.
That's for sure.
That's exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
And Mark and I already struck that.
We
We're ahead of you there.
we think we had your approval on it. Well, how about handling tasers? You know, that's a new item.
Yeah.
And just what does "and other duties as assigned" mean in a job description? If
Right.
they want to separate anything out that's not specifically itemized or whatever, it's hardly, it's common sense and this are a little far apart, I think.
We had quite a little bit of dialogue about, what would happen when the employee was called to do a task, and then they arrived at the task, and they called back saying, this is over my head or outside of my job description. And then at what point did it become derelict of duty?
Right.
And thus a terminable offense?
I'm curious to hear,
So-
since Rick was the only one there, what his comments was on this.
He didn't give us much argument. I mean, he did his best.
I mean,
To
he's hired
represent
to
his unit.
defend this, I think,
Right.
but I don't think he
Right.
wrote it.
He still wants to, I think what will probably happen is, and there's still this open grievance. And I think this was probably more so a direct result of what the open grievance was about.
Mhm.
And he was under the belief that if we just, put it in writing, that, we won't call upon anyone to do electrical work, that would be the end of the grievance. So I would imagine it will be struck shortly.
And then I'm thinking of some other entities, secondary roads comes to mind, where we have people who just do that.
Don't think anything of
Right.
it.
They just, we put a building in Manning, they do the electrical work.
Right.
Live in the same
Thank you very
room,
much, I have a skill, I'm glad to contribute, that's
Yeah.
part of my
Sure,
job.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the kind of employees Carroll County's built on.
Yes.
That's right.
Co-commitment.
Right, but
Yep.
If they're wanting to have a little bump for every little thing they do, they're probably overpaid for what they're doing now. That's my thought. Okay.
The other problem we have, which is that is only, and we weren't aware of this, it's only a two-member union, so there's only two members voting. They may never come to an agreement because one may vote one way and they vote the other way.
See, I didn't know that. The third employee out there is subject to the union, but he's not a voting member. So it's open.
Doesn't pay dues then.
Right. So,
How do they break a tie?
a tie is a no, by their bylaws.
Okay, well, I'm gonna stop on this, unless there's anybody that disagrees with anything I said, then I'll continue on.
I have no
Okay,
objection.
then we'll just let it rest, but
Yeah.
we're all,
Okay, any other discussion? If not, we got a motion to accept receipt of the agreement.
Acknowledge receipt.
Acknowledge receipt, yeah.
Yeah, acknowledge receipt. There's no other discussion. We'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So number 5, have we already covered that?
No, that will be,
Response.
yeah, so our
Okay.
official response to that written proposal,
The next page.
yep, would be that the current contract, we're gonna try and infuse the similar language to what we currently have with the other contracts in force about the insurance. Renee included a little bit of language about the ACA. Neil, this kind of
Mhm.
pertained to some concerns for yours. Once again, this doesn't exactly match the other 2 units, but we thought we would, I'm sorry, the other 3 units, but we thought we would maybe float it out there that if, for subsequent years of the agreement, if premiums increase by more than 10%, the county may elect to cancel the agreed provisions regarding insurance and wages. In addition, the provisions for the ACA would implement or result in changing the plan design. Then the union and the county agree to reopen the contract. Length of the agreement is, again, we responded back 1 year, and then the wage rates would increase by 1%. In each of the following 2 years.
I like the language that Renee has added.
Yeah.
As do we, if we can, just make it stick.
So we agree on the length so far, that's our 1 year, that's where we're right on target with them, right?
Well, yeah, we.
That's it, right?
Again, we are in agreement. We had talked about a 2-year deal that would, similarly match, but as far as a formal response to this, they know that a 1-year deal is going to be just the 1%. So now, they will visit more about it. Once again, their parties weren't here to visit about it, so we've each exchanged our initial proposal, and now the ball is in their court to either accept it or to ask for a meeting once again. And neither party, we talked about how mediation would happen. Mediation does have its advantages. It's it's sometimes deemed as a unnecessary step, but sometimes a mediator can do some good. But, of course, the final step would be arbitration if it has to go that far. So I would suspect, we've talked about how worksheets will probably go out late next week, budget worksheets, or soon.
December.
Yeah, so maybe get into December. And so, we're as a place to start. But he knows that, I would make a prediction that this one will probably go all the way, but we'll see.
Okay. I assume you're looking for a motion to approve our response.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Got a motion to approve the response back, bargaining unit. Just second.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Now, when we got done though, we let them very well know that we're not happy with the 1-year contract because of those savings and costs over a 2-year contract, so.
Well, and still doesn't make it uniform with the other 3 units.
Okay, with that, we'll go down to the sixth item. Thanks, Chantel. The sixth item is to approve a plat, and you've got that in your packet. It's in section 15 of Roselle Township. It's just a small parcel.
They're just dividing.
Dividing to one lot, I think what they're doing is, I wonder if they're
Dividing a lot because there's some building site on the south, the south side of the lot.
it was all developed, and I think what happened, some of this ground changed hands up here, and I'm not so sure they ain't selling this back to the original guy that owns this, so they can go across without going,
I probably are.
I think
Oh,
that's what's going
sure.
on.
Yeah.
So by lotting that off, they're just leaving this acreage as 2.06 acres behind, which.
So when these other, when these other ones will be platted,
Yeah, these are all 5 acres.
yeah, but they'll probably decrease.
There's 5 acres.
But can they do that after it's been established, or then reduce to a 2 acre?
They can reduce to that.
They just can't build anything
They
back
can't
here.
build anything back on it if something happens to the existing.
Yeah.
What
So
about
this,
the- what
this
about
guy's
the
actually,
existing one?
this guy's actually farming this right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yep.
The existing, if something happens to the existing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying this existing lot here, are they gonna be able to build anything else on it?
Yes.
They're not a 5 acre. That was set up for a 5 acre when they built it. That's not that old acreage.
No, it's not.
So you can
They
buy
did-
5 acres.
They did the 5 acre,
They're
now they're gonna
backing
cut it
into it.
back.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can buy 5 acres, and once you got your house on there, you can
Sell off.
sell
3.
off
Yeah.
whatever you want.
And that's what they're doing. They're selling 3 acres off a 5 acre lot.
I think we ought to
That's getting
pass-
around the 5 acre thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once again, Carl approved it, so it must meet the requirements.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
I don't know, how old are these? There's 2 buildings out there. There's a house and a building, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how old they are.
I don't think they're that old. You would know probably, Gene.
Because you can.
10, 15 years?
I bet it
See,
is.
that was actually,
Yeah.
so that was probably, that's about the time that our zoning regulations changed and said, hey, it's gotta be 5 acres or an established spot. Well, it's established now, but was it established when that change was made? I don't know.
I mean, if that's the case, everybody can buy 5 acres and it's built and, yeah, sell that.
Yeah.
That's kind of skirting around the,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're back, you're coming from the back door here.
and I
Yeah.
wonder if Carl's even aware of that.
We talked about it a little bit last week when he was up here, when we talked about that.
We clarified,
Yeah.
you know.
So no one else could build on that?
No.
Not a house.
I think Gene's concern is,
This
if
one.
you wanted to do that, you'd have,
So you could do that.
what's to stop somebody from building a house here in 5 acres and then selling off 3 acres? To eventually, actually get to the effect of having a 2 acre acreage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is exactly what happened here, but he had a 5 acre lot,
Mm-hmm.
they built on the 5 acre lot, everything's fine, because it has to be 5 acres. And now they're selling off the back 3 acres.
So if somebody said, you know, I'd like to build a house here, but I don't want 5 acres, and the owner could say, well,
You better build before you sell off the back 40
yeah,
or the back 3.
we'll go ahead and I'll sell you 5, but then I'll buy it back again in X amount of time. I mean, you could actually do that. He could have his 2 acres. Oh, it is skirting.
I know
the
there's
5
a lot of
acre.
this happening where they rent it back or let somebody farm it.
I have no
issue
problem
with
with
that.
renting it, if they're,
Yeah.
but they still, they own it.
How do you know if they're selling it?
I don't,
We don't know that,
I don't know
guess.
if they're selling it either.
If they're, okay, if they're plotting it different, if they are selling it, they have no, if it's not with this person here, they have no egress or egress.
Correct.
Ingress or egress.
Yeah, or egress, egress.
Right.
So, I mean, call Carl, I think Carl had him come up and ask him about it.
What's this extension?
167.
I don't want to stir the pot, but I think it's kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Hey,
we
Carl.
obviously have some questions.
I mean, I
See,
could've
this
done
mor-
that too.
This morning, we were going over
Yeah.
the
No, we
plat,
had to
that
buy
plat
five.
that was approved. We've got a couple questions, you have a minute or don't you? Okay, you got that, come on out. Okay, thanks.
2 weeks in a row?
He's probably thinking we're just starting to look at the.
I had a question about access to it. That was gonna be my question. but
Well, actually, the person that.
If it doesn't require access, then,
Legally, you can't landlock somebody, so if that was separate, and it's not, but if it was separate, somebody would have to let him in, or he can dam his way in. You can't landlock somebody.
Because this is all part of the one parcel.
I should, okay, that's what I was gonna say, so we've got the same owner here.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's farming that today, I'm assuming, the whole thing.
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah, well, that just got sold here not too long ago.
What's that?
Well,
Those
that,
sold.
that was north of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this over here, this over here.
Look back over this way.
Yeah, it's behind this and this.
Oh, I thought it was over here.
No, this is.
Is that spores, Kevin?
Actually, it's north of that.
Yeah, it's behind here. Is what was sold.
But this is a spore.
Man, you're fast. Here's our concern about, this is kind of a, kind of a back door to the 5-acre requirement.
Actually, that one, since the parcel was established before that rule was written,
That was my question.
then it,
It's grandfather.
So
It's
no
grandfathered
one
in.
else could build a property here and then do the same thing? Okay.
they
What
can
we
sell
didn't
off the
know-
acres. Right, yeah, that's what, yeah, the way it is now, if you do want to, now, you can't, do 5 acres and then sell off 3, yeah,
But this was done before that rule.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I checked the dates on it.
Okay, well, that
That was
was
our
our
question.
concern.
Yeah.
Because to me, if that's what's going on there, that's,
Yeah,
that's back door in the 5 acre.
yeah, this ground's going back to the.
That's what I
Right.
figured.
That's what I thought. But, yeah, that was done before the rule, so it's legit,
They said Carl approved it, so
So,
it should be good.
so then our next question would be is, can this acreage be sold? Because it's gonna be landlocked.
Well, it's gonna go, I think what they're doing is they're gonna do a land deal all across here, and get the farmer's gonna get that back.
So they're probably net,
I think
if they do a 5 acres, it's gonna have to be 5 acres here then.
Yeah, if they do anything.
Yeah, you gotta
with
square
5
that
acres,
off,
they're gonna
because
have to-
each of these lots now is exactly 5 acres.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the same guy owns that whole works now.
Right.
Except for that
uh,
Steve Hahn. Well, Spore owns the acreage.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
Steve Hahn.
Steve Hahn owns it. This is where he lives, right here.
Jim Reesberg owns it now.
yeah.
That got sold.
Jim
Well,
came
it
in.
still shows
Steve
Steve
Hahn
on
sold
the
that?
plat, in the area photos right now yet. Jim's
Well,
is
Jim's the one
north.
that came in and asked me all about it.
Yeah,
'cause-
Jim Reesberg bought
Okay,
that. That was
originally
a land auction.
did all that.
It's been probably last spring.
But isn't
That's
that
when
to
he
the,
came and talked
isn't
to me.
that to the north of this?
It's behind Steve Hahn's place, all that, there's 100 and some acres in there.
Yeah. It's to
But
the north of
but
this.
it's this parcel, it is
No,
this
I think it's
parcel
where that
again?
line there.
Or is it north of here?
I think I
No,
think
because
it's,
Steve Hahn's
it's
place.
from here all back.
That was,
that
that's
Reesberg
Stephen
one.
Hours.
No, it is not.
Isn't
That is Reesberg's.
Well,
I'm not sure of that photo. Carl, we value your expertise, thank you.
yes.
Thanks a ton, Carl.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, that one's okay.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I'd make a motion then to approve the plat.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve the plat. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So, okay, with that, we'll go down to the manure management updates. We've got 3 of them here today. There's one in Doug and Don Gherkin for section 21 of Wheatland Township. There's no changes there. Dale and Brett Ludwig, section 11 in East Township. There's no changes. And Kevin Baumover, section 10 of Maple River Township. No changes on that one. So all 3 of them, there's no changes. So that's it for the manure management. Pass those down to Courtney. And if nothing else, we'll go down to committee reports. Neil?
Had a pretty light week, had a little time to go to part of the county social. Just kind of nice to visit with the employees on a lighter level. Also had a telephone conference call with the Second Judicial District, just to go over different issues that seem to come up from time to time. So that happened on Wednesday, this conference call. And Mark and I have had a little more communication with our case managers. Last week, we approved the resignation of an individual where tomorrow was the last day, and they have decided to just kind of shuffle things around and do a few changes maybe in their phone system, but not make any major changes till after January 1st, because we just don't know where everything's going to land with these MCOs. So I think shortly after the first year, we'll be a lot more knowledgeable on that. So those were my 3 county dealings this week.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Gene?
On Tuesday, Mark and I had the union conservation thing, and then later on with Marty and Dave over at Drain 54, and then on Thursday, I looked at 270th Street. Someone had a complaint over there, and I evidently must have been blind because I couldn't see it, so. Then on Friday, went to Cherokee. We had our Juvenile Detention Center board meeting. We did have 2 months of payables that we approved. Most of our meeting was tied up with discussion, and we voted to update our planning, policies and procedures. Basically, what we did is, remember, we had the tracker system until about a year ago when we didn't get funded for it, and it's probably a good thing we got rid of it. We removed all the tracker languages out of it, and then also Emmett County is no longer with us for several years, and we removed that out, so we just basically cleaned that up. On Operations Day, we had 7 there the day we were up there, and their average for a month was about 4 to 5. So that was the majority of our meetings. So, and financials look good. Here lately, we've had been very blessed with financials compared to what it used to be in the past. So that's my week.
What's that situation on the state refund that comes once a year?
That still comes yet. We got about, I think it was like about 150-some thousand this time.
When does that usually arrive? I'm trying to remember.
Usually in August.
August, okay. Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, Dean. Dean?
I really didn't have anything for the week except the employee social, which was a nice deal.
Just as we mentioned earlier, on Tuesday, we met with the Conservation Union to exchange initial proposals. And then Tuesday evening, Ambulance Board met. You might have heard that I talked with Pat. There was a little confusion about whether or not we were meeting the second Tuesday of the week or the third. So 3 of us were there, and then the rest of them weren't. So there was no official business done. We still discussed a little bit about what we handled again this morning and a couple other little things, but no actions taken. And then I attended the New Hope banquet that evening. Senator Segabart and Mayor Adam Schweers were there in attendance also, so I was there to represent the county.
Thanks, Mark. Actually, I had kind of a busy week last week. Monday night, we had Wesco board meeting. First item of business we went over is the redemption center. There are some concerns there that we're losing money. Over the last couple of months, we've lost about $80,000. The biggest concern we have is everybody is closing their recycling centers. Genesis out of Sac City, they had one and they're closing theirs. We are looking at trying to buy the conveyors and scanners out of that entity because we do have a problem. Our biggest issue is labor counting cans. And right now, we're getting over 1 million cans a month. That's the only facility in Crawford County, and it draws from about 30-40 miles out around Crawford County. So we're kind of taking a gamble of buying a conveyor and a scanner to alleviate some of our labor issues, and I hope it pays out. The other thing is we have talked, Clay has talked to Mark Segabart about the bottle bill of trying to get an additional penny. And hopefully that surfaces for this coming year, so that would help us out tremendously. So that's where that's at. Basically, that we gave
Clay the okay to approve up to $8,000 for the system out of Genesis. It's about a $30,000 piece of equipment. And so if we can get it bought for that, we think we can come out ahead on it.
So they just don't think they're counting them accurately?
Well, basically,
They're
just
receiving
late
them.
of all the cans that we're getting, we just have such a backlog that we just can't keep ahead of it. I mean, they have high school students come in and do it part-time, and we just can't keep up. And
They can do it
faster.
addition to count, they need to sort as well. Is that
Yeah,
correct,
yeah,
for the
yeah.
manufacturers or something?
Yeah, and this conveyor would basically do the sorting. So it's basically a labor issue is what it is. So hopefully that will pay out in time. The other thing we talked about is the board composition, and we've been talking about this for quite a few months. We are in process with the region. Monona County has given us a letter of commitment that they are not gonna be part of Wesco because they don't have any clients there, and they are not part of the 7-county region. They want a letter from each of the county boards of supervisors whether they want a supervisor representative on that board. So we need to put that together, and we'll have to talk about that, whether we want to continue to be with Wesco. And I don't see a problem there with us being a part of the region. I think it'll all play out. It's one of those things, it's just they want to cross their T's and dot their I's. So, then Clay also talked about the MCO update. We have over at Wesco got 3 contracts signed, just waiting on the 4th one. I kind of questioned that one if it was a 6-month contract also, and at this point over there it isn't. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then John Morrow, he was there and kind of went over our 2014, 2015 audit. We did have a good year. I tell you what, of all the years I've been on Wesco, this is the best year that we've had. And in the process of that, the low pay over there, we did reward a lot of the employees over there with money that we made. And the second reason for that is if we don't utilize that money, it goes back to the state. So that's one of the things that we kind of work with there. So that's a good thing. And then the other thing Clay brought up is the board members, the Office of Government Management out of Kansas City. They want to do background checks even on all the board members on a monthly basis.
Monthly basis?
Monthly basis.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Must have been a bunch of shady characters.
Yes.
Keep your P's and Q's in order.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I'll pass that off around and go through at your leisure on that.
Marty, the redemption center obviously was a drag on there, but where was the profitable parts of Wesco?
Basically, the housing is profitable part of that Wesco. I mean, that system has been making us money, and that'll reflect in that audit. I mean, there's 13 houses there, and that's the breadwinner in that entity. So, and it's one of those things, as mental health goes on,
Did they keep those houses full, pretty much?
Pretty much so. Camelot, once in a while, they have an opening, once in a while, 1 or 2 openings, and that's about it. So, that's one thing I have to give Clay credit. He's done a good job of the last few years since we hired him, that financially, he's brought things forward.
Thanks, Frank.
And then on Tuesday morning, and landfill board update, also Bob Olson from Olson Muehlbauer, he came in and gave us an update on just the draft audit, and we'll approve that in January. And then he talked a little bit about the GASB 68 on the liability on the pensions of the diapers, and how that will create a liability, and that's gonna happen with all city and government entities.
$140,000 turnaround.
The other thing, we had a discussion on an employee review, a person that started here about 2 months ago, and Mary's working on putting a review together for that person for their 6-month review. Also talked about the new office manager position. We're gonna advertise that. Muriel is gonna be retiring here in January, so we're gonna open that position up for hire. So Mary was gonna go ahead and put a job description together for that. The leachate system update, we're looking at getting a grant for that. It's a $45,000 grant. We'll hear sometime in December on that. Also talked about engineering services and for the new leachate system that we're gonna put in. Both has put together a bid for that for about $100,000 to do that project. And we'll probably be letting that project, basically what it is, the leachate line that we have now currently goes from where the trail is there on the south side of the creek there, goes up to the landfill and then comes down, is it Burgess Road there? What we're gonna try and do is get an easement to cut across that field and update that line. The line right now is a 4-inch line, and we've been having a lot of problems with it. With plugging on it, we spent quite a bit in trying to clean it out here in the last couple of months. And I think we spent probably about $60,000 trying to clean that line. And so we wanna let bids next spring to put a new line, and it'll be either a 6 or an 8-inch line and cut across the field. And if we can cut the distance off, we can cut about 60,000 off of it, just in the bid, just to shorten up the line. So that's the process. That's pretty much it there. And then Tuesday went out with Dave and went down and looked at Drain 89 by Coon Rapids. And the quicksand issue down there, that's gonna be very interesting when that all gets said and done. Like Dave said, we went and talked to a contractor that only lives a couple miles from there, see if he'd be interested in the job. He wasn't interested in it, but gave us the know-how to go about approaching how to fix it. And basically his comment was get 2 or 3 inch lime rock and get a base underneath it. He said otherwise you'll just fight the quicksand. He said your rock's your friend. He said put all the rock in there you need just to get a base. Otherwise you're gonna have problems just even trying to repair it. Now, I've got some concerns there with what I saw. I mean, my biggest concern is that 10-inch line. There's 2 10-inch lines. There used to be a 14-inch, and they put 2 10-inch because the 14-inch line plugged up with quicksand. So they went around it with 2 10-inch lines and tied it into a 16, and they got a manhole where they tied that in. It's kind of what they call a relief well, so it doesn't overload the 16. But my big concern is how much of that 10-inch line is filled with quicksand. It may be a case where we might have to replace about 800 foot of 10-inch line. It all depends on what comes out when they clean
Could
it
be
up.
on both sides.
Yeah, well, Al Brinks went down and looked at the manhole. There's pretty good water coming through that manhole. So my guess is, and this is pure speculation, that one line is basically filling that manhole and the other one's probably plugged up. Just limited. So until we get into it, it's hard to say, but hopefully we don't have to.
But those 10-inch, they're both county
Mhm.
drains?
Yep.
So where's that at? I mean, what is that draining?
It drains pretty good drainage area up to the north. Down by Coon Rapids, if you go out north of Coon Rapids, across the Middle Coon Bridge there,
Mhm.
you go about probably half, 3/4 mile north, and it's on the east side. It's kind of back in the field about a half mile. It's just past the curve. You go around the curve into that place to the north, and there's a driveway that goes in there. But they've got a hole probably about half the size of this room dug in.
And it drains farm ground.
But it goes up north quite a ways. I'm not sure. I've never looked at the map to see how far north it goes up in there. But it's a mess. Those guys were slopping in the mud and to their knees on Tuesday when we were down there.
I'm just trying to think of what kind of farm ground that is that has that.
And it's fairly up high, that's.
This is fairly level. It's kind of in a flat. It's in kind of a basin.
Mhm.
And that whole thing going up through there is basically a basin.
But they farm that ground.
So, but that's pretty much it for there. And then on Thursday, had a Region 12 board meeting. Not a lot there. Rick kind of went over his executive director's report and some of the contracts he's working with. Talked about health insurance a little bit. They've got their health insurance with United Health, and they work with Holmes Murphy. They're looking at a 9% increase for this coming year. So they're looking at seeing if they can raise some deductibles and cheapen their costs there. So, and then in the process of that, we do an annual director's evaluation. I put that together. All the board members send that in, and we compile that. And we're in the process of doing that right now. We've got one agency vehicle that's got about 120,000 miles that he wants to get bids and retire that vehicle. And then on the transit side, Tom Feldman gave us an update there. Paul Scott at Coon Rapids is become a part-time driver, and he's basically going to cover Greene, Carroll, and Audubon and Guthrie counties. They had a driver training on the 24th of October, and they had a good response there. Tom also talked a little bit about the Medicaid modernization, and that has to do with the MCOs again. And there's basically what they're going to do is they have 3 transportation brokers, and one is Access Care and Logistics Care and then MTM, and those 3 entities will be the brokers with the MCO. Then he also talked a little bit about over in Denison, the Monogram Foods out of Harlan is going to start up Iowa Quality Meats in Denison. They've got their grant there, and we're looking at trying to put something together to transport people from the Harlan area to the new Iowa Quality Meats. So him and Chris are working on putting a transportation program together for that, to transport those people. And then on the local assistance side, Chris gave us an update there. We've got sad news. Sam Parker, the local assistance part-time, or the assistant local assistance personnel, he's going to be leaving this week. Thursday is his last day. He's going to start working for Region 9 Development Commission in Mankato, Minnesota, and his wife is taking a job up there, so that's the reason he's leaving. The other thing he talked is about the housing. USDA has a housing preservation grant, and this is basically used to rehabilitate older houses, and they're working in the rural areas of Audubon, Carroll, Crawford, Greene, and Sac counties in the city of Madrid, and then Guthrie and Dallas County. They're not eligible because they're basically in the Dallas Center region. And then he talked about the Assistance Firefighters Grant. They're taking, are accepting grants to cover up to 95% of the updating the firefighters' equipment in buildings. And basically then there has to be a 5% local match, so that is opened up. Then on the workforce side, Rick was there. He gave us an update for Beth because she was in Council Bluffs. They're talking about the training to people in Region 8. And there's going to be a training by Mary Ann Lawrence, and that's going to be sometime here in March is when they're looking at doing that. The Tyson Transition Center over in Denison, since Tyson is over there, they've got an office over there, and that's kind of a sore subject at this point, because there used to be a workforce development center in Denison, and now it's not there, and now they've got all this stuff going on with Tyson, and they think there's a need to bring it back, in which there truly is. So that's pretty much my week. So, any questions or comments?
I do have one other thing. I did get an email before it came up this morning. The chamber is having the same issues as everybody else with employment.
Mm-hmm.
They have lost 2 employees now in the last short term. Amy Sturm resigned, taking on a different position that she felt was a good opportunity. And as of this morning, I got a notice that Sue Schrod is also resigned and taking a position at accountant out east of Carroll. So,
They filled Amy's position right away.
I don't know if they did it right away.
Yeah, they did.
They had some applications,
Yep,
I know, but I
yep,
hadn't
they
heard
filled
if
it
they
right
filled
away. But Sue's comes as a surprise. She's been there, I think, as long as I can remember.
Well, her husband Bill is retiring from Kemper this year too. I think he is done now.
Anything else? Courtney, do you have anything? Any comments from anyone in attendance?
Yeah, how many employees does the conservation contract affect?
2.
Just
Three.
Just
Three.
just
Yeah,
those
three.
3?
Three.
Okay,
2
that's
are
what I
right.
thought I heard, but
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was the total of everything.
Yeah, it affects 3, and there's 2 voting members, 1 non-voting.
And then everybody seemed to be satisfied with the resolution as far as the construction upstairs. Is that accurate?
I think so.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd say.
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's, we still probably would have, been better off to properly budget for it. And I'd like to see bids on everything, but.
I think the way it was handled was fair.
I think it's
Concerned
probably
with how
handled
it
right up there,
happened,
just
what
wasn't
happened.
communicated down this end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, he was talking about, a couple of the area around us, newer courthouses built. And I said, Dickinson County, Spirit Lake
Mhm.
has one that's fairly new. in the
That whole
last-
courthouse is new.
Yeah. 8 years, and he said, yeah, he's been there, and it's nice, it's more, it's got security measures, they've got,
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Okay. Anything else? Now, we're in order for a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. Any other discussion? Now, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.